All right, it is about 8:34 and we are here to begin the curriculum committee of the West Bend School District and School Board. We'll start with introductions. I'm Melanie Ergot, board member.
Jill Reese, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Erin Faust, Program Administrator for the Curriculum Department.
John Graff, Program Administrator, Curriculum Department.
Heidi Spangola, District Literacy Coordinator.
Jamie Malsum, Early Learning Administrator.
Matt Durant, Early Learning Administrator.
All right, today we will be discussing early learning literacy, human growth and development update, WBVA elective course selection, and grades 5 through 8 social studies update. We will start with the early learning literacy.
Test. Okay, we're good to go. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Today, we are bringing before you a curriculum and instruction, early learning literacy plan for you. So, my name is Jamie Malsum. I'm one of the early learning administrators, and Heidi and Matt are also here to discuss and answer any questions as well. Thank you. So we're going to look at our current literacy practices in early learning, our potential outcomes with the add of the proposed curriculum, and kind of the why we're bringing this forward to the curriculum board this morning. We're going to discuss how it will strengthen our 4K to 5K transition, and we're going to share information on the F&P interactive read aloud and writing program.
All right, thank you. My name is Matt Durant again. So I'm going to start with some background information about what we currently are using in early learning. So we have a program called the Creative Curriculum. The Creative Curriculum is a developmental continuum that helps align students to where they are on a spectrum of skills. So right now we like the Creative Curriculum a lot for our assessment, so it helps us to rank our kids and see where they are developmentally. But what the program lacks is some specificity around how to actually deliver that instruction and the scope and sequence for students. So, go ahead, you can go to the next slide. We started talking earlier this year about the transition from 4K to 5K, and we really want to build up that transition, really strengthen that. So we talked about what our 5K is currently using, and we thought, you know, maybe it's time that we bring it down to the early learning level. So we are considering this purchase that we're bringing forward today. We're also looking at this because we want to make sure that our teachers have that scope and sequence behind them and have that, all the tools that they have to have that kind of calibration across all of our early learning sites. So the kit itself that we're considering purchasing is a set of trade books, and it's used during whole group class instruction. So essentially the teacher is going to use a trade book to read, and the program itself is going to provide the teacher the tools to kind of ask the right questions for students and help them, guide them through that instruction. We like the program. We have a trial kit that we're kind of playing with right now. We like that it has some differentiation for students with special education needs. It has some differentiation for English language learners. And we feel that this is a good, again, kit to be able to strengthen that transition from 4K to 5K, because now they're going to know all those procedures and routines as they enter 5K. And then similarly, we want to talk about the writing part of it.
like Matt said, the writing part is very similar. It's delivered during whole group instruction, and there's 6 components to the writing, and each component builds upon those early writing skills. So again, adding that component would help strengthen that transition for our kiddos to be ready when they enter the elementary school for 5K. There's a timeline here, so today we're bringing this forward to you for discussion. On March 6th, we will bring it forward to the school board for recommendation and discussion, and then on the 20th, we will bring it back to seek approval from the school board to purchase. These links here will give you a quote for each of the pieces. So the Head Start quote would come from Fund 29, which is separate from the district fund, so Head Start will be purchasing that separately. And then the second piece is the quote for 4K, and do you want me to talk a little bit about the pricing too?
Sure.
So the 4K quote is around $11,000. That's the purchase of 8 kits, and for the IRA, as well as the Joyful Writing book. And then in there is also the book list that's linked for your viewing, so you can see all of the different trade books that are in there. Thank you very much. And do you have any
I
questions?
have a few questions.
Yeah.
Is it possible to make this viewable to the public, to so people can see beforehand before it would be ordered?
Absolutely.
And then I wanted to ask about, which you may not know this, but maybe Jill would, about the F&P curriculum. That we just started with that this past year, right? Have we gotten any feedback from the staff that's currently using that curriculum? And how well, if it's working well for them, or if there's gaps or anything missing?
Those are really good questions. It's a little early to tell, if there's gaps, and I know when we bring forward STAR data and things like that, we haven't seen any huge shifts, but we received the materials in spring, like late spring of last year. Teachers received some training then in the summer and like in August. And so really kind of full implementation started at the beginning of the school year. So they've really only been about 6 or 7 months into it, not even a full year. I think we do get feedback from teachers, and Heidi's been really great about surveying teachers at different points about, it's kind of this pendulum swing. We almost have so many resources now. Before we didn't have many, now we have so many. So they're trying to navigate using all the resources, using them to their fullest potential, things like that. We'll continue to survey them. I think the beauty of what Matt and Jamie are asking is this directly aligns with what we bought for K through 5, and so it's a direct connection to that. In regards to the links that they have in there, those are all available in Board Docs for the public to see. Are you thinking you want something else for the public to see?
I just think it's good for transparency, before we would order something, that people would have the opportunity to kind of look through and see if that, and not saying everybody would look through it, but, maybe there's some people that would.
The other thing we could do, which we've done with some of the other resources, is we could put a computer like up in the Rushmore room where people can just link in and look at the books if the public wants to come in and look at it. If you think that would be something that people would be interested in, we'd be happy to do that.
Are the books actually available? Are you able to click on them? I saw a list of books, but
I don't think you can click into them, right?
Right.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, it's really the titles, and I think it's a picture of the book,
Yeah.
like the cover.
You're asking for a physical copy of the
Or,
materials.
even if there was a digital copy too, but if it just shows the cover, you can't really see it,
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the books are they're real early readers, so there's not a lot of text, there's a lot of pictures, things like that, but yeah, we can see what we can do if you think it would be helpful. I don't know if we can get, so Heidi, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is from Heinemann, correct?
That's correct.
Heinemann's not real giving with samples. So maybe we can gather a few samples, we probably couldn't get every single one, but we could probably gather a few samples and then also have the link on a computer for people to look at covers and titles if you think
Sure,
that would
and
help.
you can probably search them on
Yeah.
YouTube or, you know, like,
Sure.
something you can
Or
find
on
that stuff.
Amazon or something. but,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the titles are like, they're well-known children's books
Sure.
as well. I'm like in the Tall, Tall Grass and some of those pieces too. And the teacher that has some of the trial pieces, I'm sure she would be able to bring those or share those as well, so people could look if they wanted to.
Yeah, that would be great.
And then, I just had a comment about the F&P. I know, that some of the board members had been doing little meet and greets at some of the schools, and one of the members had mentioned to me that there were several teachers that talked about the F&P curriculum and that they weren't happy and there were some gaps, and they were purchasing material on their own to fill some of those gaps. And so I think it would be a good idea to maybe put out a survey or something to the teachers that are already using this to find out, you know, what is missing, or that, you know, they shouldn't be having to spend their own resources on trying to fill gaps. And so I feel like I would want to know that they're happy with the resources they're using before we would purchase more resources to go with that if the current staff isn't.
Yeah, so you're talking, this was probably at a
It's one of the
K-5
elementaries.
schools. Okay, so it wasn't at a 4K somewhere, it was at
No,
one, okay.
right. So maybe just kind of
Yeah, I'm happy to
a
look
survey
into
or
that a
something
little
to the
bit further.
teachers that are using it, you know, to determine if they feel it's working well, you know.
Yeah, so I know Heidi's been really great about doing that, a couple of times, but maybe we need to look at it from a little bit different angle and just kind of see if that's the feedback that
Yeah.
we're getting. Yeah, we don't, I mean, I think it's natural for teachers to purchase some things, do you know what I mean, but we don't want them to spend inordinate amounts of
Right,
money.
yeah, and
to
I
bring
didn't speak to them
resources in.
directly, it was just communicated to me through
Okay.
another board member, so.
So then, I guess the question is, and I'm wondering if these guys have the same question, so does that timeline look okay if we bring some in between now and, when it comes to the board for discussion, that we put some public, things out for public viewing?
Yeah, let's
Or do you wanna
do
bring
that.
it back to curriculum committee?
When's the next curriculum committee is?
Yeah, and the next curriculum committee is kind of weird because I think it's in between meetings, let me just double check. So the next curriculum committee meeting is March 21st, so it's after both March board meetings. We'd be happy to do it, then we would just bring it forward in April, but it's totally up to you what you prefer.
Yeah, let's do that, because I think it would be, you know, important just for transparency to make it available for people to see, and I would like to see some follow-up with the teachers that are using the current curriculum, just to make sure that, you know, we're not buying more curriculum if it's not a good fit for people that are already using it, you know what I mean?
Okay, so then we'll just shift the March dates into April, and that will give us some time to get those resources out for people to take a look at.
Absolutely.
Does that sound okay?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I will send you guys the dates, after the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can make that shift.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Right? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the next presentation on the human growth and development update.
Oh, did somebody leave their glasses in?
Those are mine.
Oh.
You can just. You can do that.
Yeah.
You don't need those, right?
I wasn't gonna wear them.
They're the presentation glasses. Everyone has to wear them.
Oh, wait, that was the wrong one. Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Is it on? Can you hear me? Did it click off?
Doesn't sound like it's on.
It doesn't seem like it's
Should be a little light, hopefully.
Okay, there we go.
on.
Yep.
You can hear me now? No.
No.
Now?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so, John Greff, currently administrator. Last time I presented as Green Tree principal, but I do both roles right now. So I'm just here to give an update. The Human Growth and Development Committee did meet on February 9th. We do plan to have more often the meetings, so about every 6 months. I know that wasn't the original recommendation, but I think it's good to provide updates on where we are and where we're going.
Is it the same people that did the original?
It's the same list of people that Laura Jackson originally went through the process with, and I'm taking all the pieces from the recommendations and making sure we're moving forward.
Okay.
So just, we kind of went over what our goals were, what our original agreements were, and then to get to know people as well. I know some of the members from just being in the district for 7 years, but I don't know every single one. So introductions, review, kind of the goal of the meeting was kind of say, this is where we're at, this is where we've progressed this school year, this is kind of our next steps. So we kind of went through that. So the first thing that we covered was the website. So there have been updates to the website based on the recommendations. Now, if you go into the website, you'll see sample parent letters. So what goes home in 4th grade, 5th grade, and 8th grade. It obviously says insert date because it's different depending on which is coming up beginning in March and then April, the 4th and 5th grade times. And then obviously 8th grade is a health class. So the sample letters are in there as well as the opt-out information. So information regarding the curriculum, what's covered during the different sessions, and pretty much what the committee had recommended moving forward has been added to the website. So that was a big update, and it's a good update just to let everybody know what we cover and also how to opt out as well. Make it a little easier to see. So the next part was the recommendations for grades 4 and 5. Just the overall, encouraging speaking to a trusted adult about menstruation without emphasis on the trusted adult being a female was one of the recommendations, which has been updated. And then also the fact that medical professionals participate in the lessons. So we have that on the website and then also in the letters so that it's clearly stated. And we do have those providers lined up, and they do come in from, I believe, Freighter. So the next part has been working with Tom Hogister and Alyssa Spaeth and kind of going over the recommendations. We have a checklist that we use that is all of the recommendations. These are just a few of them, whether it's enhancing instruction for risky situations. We do have Friends that comes in and talks about it as well. Media-wise skills is something that Friends does lessons on in 8th grade. And also the counseling department also goes over lessons on that. And also about risky situations, healthy relationships, so enhancing disease prevention information, and really what Tom and Alyssa have been doing throughout the year is updating their information. Every PD day that we've had, they've both gone in and met together and made sure they're updating their slides and information based off the recommendations from the committee. So all of that information is consistently being updated. Are we there all the way yet? No, and that's kind of why we have that checklist to say, hey, where are we at with this? Hey, if we have a question, we reach out to Amy Brager as well. And also there was a recommendation 812 of including a course. So we kind of talked about that, how if you add a course at the high school, you also are potentially adding a credit, whether it's an elective or a required course. So we've also had discussions about, is there a unit where we can just include that information into our 9th grade health class? So as far as 812, and that will go through the kind of a course audit next year, kind of, what units do we have based on the committee? Is there a unit that doesn't have as much, meat to it or importance that we could pull out and say, hey, based on the committee, we would add in here. And that may be the direction that we go. We're just not quite there yet, which is why we kind of talked about meeting every 6 months, because whenever you're looking at a course at the high school level, you're talking about enrollment changes, you're talking about whether, like I said, is it a required course or an elective. So really going through that and going, okay, what do we hit in 8th grade? What do we hit in health class? And are we meeting all these recommendations? So there. And then the next thing that we went through was the YRBS survey, so Youth Risk Behavior Survey, that will be administered during this school year. I'm not quite sure on the dates as far as when it's administered, but I know Superintendent Wimmer has talked about that. And that's really.
John, I believe it's going to be the end of May.
Okay.
One of the asks was to do it after the other testing is done in the district, so it will be towards the end of the school year.
Okay. And part of the recommendations were to review that data, but first we have to give the survey in order to obtain the data, and then go from there. Kind of the next steps, and we're past, well, one of these was a snow day, so we did have a preview night last Wednesday, and we had a couple people come in, so we collected, and we had the Just Around the Corner videos out for people to preview. And then kind of the next step was that course revision process at the high school and what our units of instruction look like.
So the preview nights or so, the family can come in and preview the material?
Yeah, so you can come in from, it was 5 to 7 last Wednesday before the snowstorm hit, which is a common thing on Thursdays now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were open from 5 to 7 for families to come in and preview.
Okay.
Specifically for 4th and 5th grade parents that may be new to the curriculum, I guess higher grade parents can also do that, but generally that's at the school and they can just check in the school and view the things, but this is specific for parents that are new to the curriculum process.
Yeah, and some of like the recommendations are whenever there's the 4th and 5th grade days or 8th grade, we collect like questions and we publish those. That's part of the process. So just another thing, we have the whole checklist. It really was just a, hey, this is where we are. You know, Tom and Alyssa have done great work this school year to really update a lot of information, and they're continuously going through the slides. They're looking at where do we include this information already, just so that we don't duplicate information as well. But I really appreciate their work. They've been fantastic to work with. They usually give up their prep period to talk to me, so I greatly appreciate that as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next, so we're going to the WBVA course, elective course selection.
I'm Erin Faust, Program Administrator, alongside John for the Curriculum Department. And here today just to share an update about the high school course selections from the West Bend Virtual Academy. So since 2010, the West Bend School District has offered a virtual opportunity for students. Prior to COVID, it was really an alternative placement for some students who needed a different approach to instruction. During the year after the COVID shutdown, we partnered with Edmentum to provide our curriculum and the teachers. And then after that year, we have gone back to using Wisconsin Virtual School as our full-time partner. That is also who we used when the WBVA was WBOLA, so in the years prior to. So if you're hearing acronyms, WBOLA and WBVA and WVS, there's lots of W acronyms that go along with this virtual program. So I try to help people keep those straight. Used to be WBOLA, then there was Ebola, so we changed it to the West Bend Virtual Academy, and we've kept that acronym for the past several years. But then Wisconsin Virtual School is the other WVS. So when I email students, I always try to make sure they know which W we're talking about. So the data in front of you does not include data for our K-8 program. It does include the data for our high school students. We have about 20 students in that K-8 program that encompass this year 3rd grade through 8th grade, along with special education students and students participating in a variety of formats. So we have students that are fully asynchronous. So they have teachers from the Wisconsin Virtual School, and they just work through their curriculum. We also have students who are in the synchronous program, which is now WVS Plus. So those students have live lessons every day that they're meeting with their virtual teachers. They also have social activities and things that they participate that way. So that program is quite different than the high school program, which is a completely asynchronous program, so the students work on their own pace. There's a teacher that checks in with them. They have access to that teacher via Zoom and via email, but there are no live lessons that our high school students are required to attend. So the data that you have in front of you is the data for the past 2 school years, because that is our full partnership so far with WVS. So last school year, we had approximately 115 students for semester 2. The way I calculated data for semester 1, I don't have a really clear picture, but it's very similar to that. So the way I look at this is sort of 2 parts. How many of our students are accessing their core content areas through the virtual program? And then how many of our students are accessing elective programs? And many of them are full-time virtual students. Many of them are hybrid students, so it's not a clear 50-50. It's a very good mix of students accessing the program as it fits their needs. So last year in semester 1, we had 267 courses. So it's not 267 students, but 267 courses in the core literacy, math, science, social studies area. And then in semester 2 of last year, we saw quite an increase in the number of students taking their core classes with the virtual program.
Karen, I have a clarifying question.
Yes.
So of the 267 courses, if I was a virtual student, how many virtual courses could I take a day?
The maximum students can take is 6.
Okay.
We do work with some students, like if they're really trying to graduate early, there is a wiggle room for a 7th course.
Okay.
But that doesn't happen automatically. That goes through conferences with myself, our counselor, and the family and the student to make sure that's a good fit.
So this 267 could be somebody who has 6 courses, somebody who has 3 courses, somebody who has 1 course, a mix of all
Correct.
those things, right?
That's why
Okay.
the total number at the bottom of how many individual unique students actually took advantage of this program versus how many courses did they take. So that's why it's broken down in those 2 different ways, because I don't want to give the impression that there's 267 students. That's not accurate. That's how many courses they took. And that also is some students are taking a credit recovery English course, and they're also taking a simultaneous semester 1 of the next course. So there's room for students, again, to meet their needs within this program a little bit differently than in person, which is why we continue to offer the program. So just if you work your way across, and we look at comparisons from last year to this year, just in the core content area, we can see that we have semester 1 to semester 1, fewer students accessing their core classes with the virtual program, but then we see an increase again for semester 2. So while the overall numbers of courses taken is a little bit less, there is an increase again between semester 1 and semester 2. So we're finding that students take their classes in person, and then we aren't quite sure what pushes them to virtual semester 2, but we've seen that data trend now for 2 years in a row that semester 2 enrollment is a little bit higher than semester 1. Elective courses on the bottom, you can sort of follow across as well. Our areas where students are taking a lot of classes are the business and information technology classes. Family and consumer science, we saw a drop from last year to this year. And then technology and engineering, we've seen an increase. And the health and physical education, we had a significant number of students take health and physical education over the summer. So the fact that those numbers are a little bit lower doesn't surprise me because we had a lot of students meet those credits already. And then world language, last year WVS used a different curriculum for world language, and it was at a higher level than what would be comparative to our in-person courses. So I believe that there, between counselors and conversations that happened, there's a reason our numbers are lower this year. WVS changed their curriculum. It is much more in line with our in-person offerings. So I can see these numbers potentially rebounding in the future as we converse with the counselors to say these courses are much better aligned now. So looking at the bottom, if you follow these 2 black boxes kind of across, so so this one going over to this one. I just did some comparison data. So the number of courses taken in semester 2 compared to semester 1, you can see in those green bars that we were plus 93 courses for semester 2 last year. And then this year we're plus 45 courses for semester 2. So again, that increase across the semesters. And then just looking at overall, we're down courses this year than we were from last year. And part of that is explained because we have done, myself and our counselor that works closely with me, really trying to work with students and families to ensure that the virtual program is the right fit for them. So there are some students and families that we have counseled back into more of a hybrid format or back into in-person, because we try to look at the student and the whole picture of what's good for them right now, what's good for them in the future, and really use the program to help meet their needs. And sometimes the program isn't what meets their needs, and that's okay. But really just, again, appreciating the opportunity that students have access to this, because we do have a lot of students for a variety of reasons that do participate in the program and are very successful. Questions?
I don't really have any questions, but I think it's great that we offer this program for students, that this does meet their needs, and yeah, so thank you for the update.
Erin, I have a couple things.
Go ahead. That's okay.
Can you just describe a little bit about, and just in general terms, the budgetary impact of these numbers? Because I'm not sure that, like this committee and maybe the board understands totally what the budgetary impact means if we have different courses or different numbers of students or whatever that looks like.
So I'm gonna have to clarify a little bit. Are you talking like how much does each course cost the district? Like,
no, just, I guess I'm thinking in terms of we pay lump sums each semester to WBVA, but it does ebb and flow, right, with the number of courses, the number of students, all those things. So just a little description of that.
Yep, so we budget for, like we look at these numbers and sort of take the average and say, okay, what are we anticipating? As we're looking at, high school enrollment has started already, so our counselors are again working with students to determine their needs. So we look at the average and we budget a little bit higher than the average to make sure that we have the budgetary needs to pay for the courses for students. So each course costs about $290. And then if it's a credit recovery course, it's a little bit less. We do have some of our special education students where the district has a special education teacher. Their course content costs less, but then the trade-off is we are paying our own district teacher. So I do work with Andy Sarnow and Dr. Reese to work through the budget for this as well. Is that what you were?
Yeah, thank you. And just to clarify for the committee too, so we've done an analysis of the cost per student, and it's based really on enrollment, but really this program is a really good deal. And when you look at the lump sum of money that we spend, people think, ooh, that's a big bucket of money. But if we break it down by student and by course, it's really a great deal and a great service for these particular students. So it's really something that we're invested in because we believe we're meeting the needs of these 100 and whatever students-ish every year, and that maybe some of them alternatively might have been in some other program that was higher cost or something if we didn't have this, so.
Right, so you wouldn't be paying staff to teach these classes specifically, it's just.
Yeah, we pay a lump sum to the Wisconsin Virtual Academy for their instructors and their content and things like that. And then some of these hybrid things, then, students are taking some of those courses and some of ours at the high school or whatever. So I really believe that this meets a niche of students we have in the district, right? And if we didn't have this, some of those students might be in other programs that are much more costly that we would have to support them, so. Yep, thanks, Erin.
Thank you. And next on the list is update on grades 5 through 8 social studies. We have Jill Reese presenting.
So I am just going to take us through just a little review of 5 through 8 social studies. We did do an adoption late last spring, and so I just want to kind of update the committee on where we're at that adoption and the resources and the work that the teachers have been doing with the new resources. So we're going to go through a little historical information. We're going to do a few updates on the status of the work. We're going to have some examples of the work are actually linked into this presentation so they can be viewed, and then the next steps that we have going on with the work ahead. So in May of 2022, the school board approved the purchase of McGraw-Hill Social Studies resources for 5 through 8. And for those of you that participated in reviewing materials and looking at the resources, we did a very long study of kind of different resources and kind of narrowed it down to this. We fully understand that no resource is everything and no resource is perfect, but that is what we, the board approved in May of 2022. So after that, then we spent the spring kind of moving forward with the purchase. And then in late August, so actually welcome back week of 2022, staff started receiving training. So by that time, most of the books were in the district, most of the resources were in the district, most of the online pieces were updated, and then staff actually had training from McGraw-Hill on just how to use the platform, what resources went with what, all those types of things. Based on that, then, they started kind of out at the gate, then creating their units of study. So I met with them several times, and it was really the teachers at Silverbrook and the teachers at Badger. And based on kind of what happened with the adoption schedule and getting the materials, and this was the timeline I gave them to complete some of the work. And so we have teams in different places. Some of them are ahead of the schedule, some of them are on target with the schedule, but they're all working through it. So really having Q1 topics completed before September 1st. So that was sort of a heavy lift because receiving those things before that welcome back week and then getting in and getting those units ready to start teaching, that was kind of a heavy lift. The next was for Q2, oops, and I see I'm missing a 2 there, I apologize. Completed before November 3rd. And then this kind of follows along with the quarter dates on our district calendar, so people kind of had a thing to work against or work towards. Topic units for Q3 completed before January 20th, and then topic units for Q4 completed before April 5th. So as you can see, there's still some work in progress, but like I said, we have some teams that are farther ahead of these dates, and then some teams that are in process on some of these dates.
So has this been implemented already starting this fall? They had the first quarter stuff done and they start implementing that and they're working on the next stuff, kind of getting it ready for.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like building the plane and flying it at the same time, right? Yeah. So they started with this at the beginning of the year and started working through all the different resources they had and building those units then coming from that. So like I said, some of the Badger teams are probably a little farther ahead. Some of the Silverbrook teams have worked diligently, but social studies looks a little bit different in each school, so they've been working through it a little bit differently. So on this slide actually takes you to links for the actual units so you can see what they've been working on. And so we linked in all of the grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8. Now there are notes on some of them that say in process, and that means a unit that they're still working on. Other units are units that they've somewhat completed because they've taught them and they've gone in and made revisions and they kind of know, how that's going. Are you interested in me linking on any of these samples right now, or is it something you'd just rather look into?
I kind of started browsing, but it's like 30 chapters and I had like a day to look at it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it took us a while because we did an analysis of, so I have a Google folder that they keep all these units in. And when I went through them last week, some of them I wasn't quite clear on what was going on with some of them. So I emailed them and gave them some time to get some of that updated. And then I met with them yesterday on the professional development day. So we didn't upload all of this until I was sure with them until last night. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of time. So I'm happy to bring this back again to curriculum committee if you want to look through them and ask questions.
Yeah, that was
It's up
on
to you.
my notes,
Yeah.
that I did want to get a chance to look through that a little bit more.
Yeah, so why don't we, I can schedule this for the March curriculum committee just to come back for questions. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Okay.
And then this is, are these units available for the public to also see, or is this just?
So through board docs, through the public, yeah, they can link on all of them and see all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I also linked in, this was a topic of conversation throughout adoption last year, is the social studies priority standards. So I linked that in because we did do some work on these priority standards, but just in the effort of transparency and clarity, these standards that we prioritize are directly taken from the Wisconsin social studies standards, and they're linked together with that. So when we do the standards adoption in July or standards approval in July, the public notice, these priority standards are also part of that as a complement. So just for clarity, because there was quite a bit of conversation about this when we went through adoption and what was happening with these, and just for clarity, they're totally linked and totally part of that whole package. And I have this potential timeline in here to then take it to the school board for information, but we will shift that so we can come back to curriculum committee on March 21st. So then we'll bring it to the board meeting, the first meeting in April for information. So then the full board has access to those units to see them and ask questions too.
That sounds good. I will look forward to kind of having some more time to go through the materials, so.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit, and each grade level has a different kind of look at it, so.
A little different format kind of to the.
We gave them all the same template, but they all, so like 5th grade, for example, is more aligned with like an elementary set of curriculum, where the 6th through 8th grade is more of a middle getting into high school type curriculum. So the resources they have look a little bit different, right? And so then when they're writing these units of study, there's kind of differences because of some of the materials they have. So you'll see that too in the units, just how some of them are developed and some of them are written. But we did ask them for specific things, you know, goals of the unit, vocabulary of the unit, things like that. So you'll find all that in there.
Okay, and then when this comes before the board, it's just really an informational piece, or?
Yeah, so I went back and watched a bunch of board meetings and curriculum committee meetings from last year when we went through this. So there were different conversations about approving units, viewing units, all that. So I believe we can bring it forward, and I'd love for everybody to see them. I don't know that we're at the point of approval just because all these resources have already been approved, but I will check in with Jen Wimmer and see what she would prefer that we do.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we've addressed all of our topics, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the meeting at about 9:17.